Thank you for having me, Kenny. It's always an honor to be here. I truly appreciate the invitation, and thanks to the Sports Foundation. Really sincere thank you to all the high school football coaches that are here. My son's playing high school football, and although I've always had an appreciation for high school football, I can tell you I have a much, much deeper and greater appreciation, it seems like, once you have your kid playing. So I think the unsung heroes really of sports are the high school coaches, and I appreciate everything that you guys do. You know, Coach, in all due respect, you introduced, I think, almost everyone at the table, but you did not introduce Juan Javieta. You might wonder how I know Juan. He and I played basketball together at Jesuit back a long many years ago, and I must say, Justin should thank his mom for the great genes she gave him. No, I'm joking. Juan was an outstanding basketball player and baseball player as well. So congratulations for Justin and your family and everyone there. One more quick story, if you don't mind. Monday, I went into work yesterday, and I saw Mickey Loomis, and I said to Loomis, how was the game, thinking that he was watching the tape on the game, and all of a sudden he broke out into, he thought I meant the Country Day a meat upset. And so he literally knew everything about the Country Day a meat game, and so I was pleasantly surprised when I got here today and you guys were sitting here. I know much more about that game than you can ever imagine. The other thing I must say, I know Tulane had somewhat of a rough week, but man, we can't be more supportive of the Tulane athletic practice, the football team. And I know you guys come out to use our practice facility every once in a while, and I can tell you everybody in the building's pulling for you. And good luck this weekend. Good luck with the season. And as we always say, if there's anything we could do to be more supportive, we want to see that stadium filled with a bunch of rabid Tulane fans, and hopefully this weekend it'll be there. Congratulations again. Juan and I were growing up, and I remember watching you guys win, and it truly was an inspiration for everyone. And of course, good luck to LSU this season. Tremendous game, and really proud of the Tigers. Even though I went to Alabama, I'm still proud of the Tigers. So anyway. So 2017, last year, we were the NFC South champions. It was a good year, but that only means that we have to do better, because our goal is not to be just the South champions, NFC South champions. We want to win the Super Bowl. And that's been the focus, obviously, for all the other 31 teams as well as ourselves, but we're feeling pretty good about this season. We feel good on the field and off the field. This year, not only were we number one in NFC South, but we also were actually number one in the NFL in game day satisfaction for our fans. So we try to bring a very balanced, good, great product to the fans in New Orleans. This off season, if you came around to practice, you might have saw some construction going on. We invested well over $5 million in our training areas. I would tell you we probably have the most innovating, cutting technology when it comes to training and health and healthcare, and hopefully that will pay dividends this year. I mean, obviously, the worst thing, everyone feels very good about their team. They're very optimistic right now, but I can tell you the one thing that every coach and everyone in our building is going to say, and you're going to hear the media say, it's all about injuries. And can we push our way through that? And we're trying to be as proactive as we possibly can with the investments we made there. I think we feel we had a very good free agency. I think we feel we had a very good draft. And I think some folks will immediately say, well, not all of the draft picks made the team. And I think to a certain extent, again, that would be a better question for Mickey and Sean, but at least through my conversations, I think the deeper dive there is that we have a pretty deep roster, and we have the best players on our team. And so it's if there is a luxury, it's a luxury. Hopefully that our roster is that deep. We'll continue to work. A lot of folks continue to hear about Superdome and Superdome improvements. We're working on the master plan. We're forging our way with that. One of the interesting things about the building is that we're fully supportive of the building. I think the state's fully supportive of the building, and we have to figure out how to make it through the next generation. And so it's been a really good process that we have been going through, and we'll see where we wind up on the other side. We continue to really focus in the community. We continue to put football fields in the city, in the state, in the region. Try and do our part to get kids involved in football. We see across the country a decrease in the number of kids that are playing football. However, in this region, we don't see the decreases that we see in other parts of the country. In fact, we even see some increases, so we're very encouraged with that. Let me say something on basketball real quickly. Unfortunately, we don't see youth participation in basketball growing as rapidly as we can, and so we're actually sinking an enormous amount of money into growing youth basketball in this community, and we'll see where that takes us. It's amazing to think of the lack of success I think we've had at the collegiate level of getting high school players into local and regional colleges who really excel, and not only excel, and make their programs excel. So if we could play just a little part of getting more kids involved in basketball, and ultimately, obviously, will affect us and help us in the long run, but hopefully it will have a residual effect of helping everyone else. Mentioned television ratings for LSU. Well, we're real proud as well. We continue to be number one in the National Football League in television ratings year after year after year, week after week. Now, you could say, well, your market's not the size of LA, and I would say you're absolutely right, but we do have a very big market, and our viewership is very strong and very robust, and so we take pride in that. And people like to say, well, you're the 51st market, 50th market, and that might be true. And in fact, you guys may have heard me say this because I preach this constantly, and that is, look, if you look at the Southeast, particularly Louisiana, Mississippi, and Alabama, and you look at the fan avidity in those areas, it tops the charts, and they're all Saints fans. So if I accumulate all those fans, it's roughly about 7 million people, which is about the same size as Chicago. So we really look at our market as a very large market, and over 33% of our business comes from outside 100 miles of New Orleans. So it's a really big effort for us. We never like to say it's a handicap. In fact, we say the opposite. We think it's an advantage, and so hopefully that can translate into basketball time overtime, and we'll see where we go. Speaking of Pelicans and basketball, training camps start on September 25th. I mean, it's almost here. It's hard to believe. There's a lot of excitement in the building with the basketball team, but the great news about the basketball team is that I do think we've gotten better. The bad news with the basketball team is I think everybody in the West also got better. And so it's going to be a much bigger challenge for us. I mean, all of a sudden the Lakers are really relevant now. Other teams are up and coming, but I'll tell you, our coaching staff, our trainers, they're all players in the weight room. They're working out. We're seeing them. And I can say that firsthand knowledge. I've been working out every morning at 6:30, and I'm dying, to be honest with you. but I see them working out as well. We're happy to see having Alfred Payton back in Louisiana. We think he's going to do a lot for us. We also, if you pay attention to the news here pretty soon, or on radio, whenever you might hear, we'll be making an announcement of our G League team. We have, I can't say who yet, and I can't ruin it, but I can say the announcement's going to be coming here in a couple weeks, and so we're really excited about that. And again, that's just investing in the product that we deliver. I'll say one last thing, because I think I'd be remiss if I didn't talk about this at least a small part before I open up for questions. And that is obviously the number one struggle or thing challenge we had this year was the death of Tom Benson, and he meant so much to so many of us in the organization. And there's so many ways to talk about his life, to define his life, the great things he did, the challenges he had. I mean, there's so many things. But I was sitting in Mass, and I don't know if you guys know this, but we have Mass before every football game. So we were in Mass the other day, and it was Thursday, and one of not the homily, but the gospel was about Matthew, and again, you've heard this a million times, whether you're you know, religious or not religious, you've heard the saying, no one knows the day or the hour. And if you actually read, if you pay attention as they're reading the Gospels, the rest, it's a great story about, for the most part, the master goes away, and the good servant, the blessed servant's the one that continues to work. The bad servant's the one that goes and gets drunk. And it's, you know, the whole idea is blessed to the servant that works for others. And I can tell you, that gospel hit me. That was Tom Benson. I mean, the man worked till he was 90 years old. He never knew the day or the hour. And the other thing that was kind of, you know, you take from this was that, you know, and it's pervasive in our building, and I think it's important. And that is, you know, it's what you do when no one's looking. And that was Tom Benson. What he did when no one cared. And we also have a saying in our building, you know, it's amazing what we can accomplish when no one cares who gets the credit. I mean, you know, those types of things all kind of fold on top of each other, and that's the type of organization that he left us. And so I would tell you, even though the master, small m, not capital M, is gone through death, it's going to be up to us to keep on working hard, just like the gospel says we should. So I think we're committed to that. I think Mrs. Benson is doing an outstanding job. You know, she's very much like Mr. Benson. She's there early in the morning, doesn't leave till late in the day. At the end of his life, Mr. Benson was not able to travel as much as he could, so he couldn't go to all the away games. Now, Mrs. Benson is at every football game away, home, obviously, and then she's been making almost all the basketball games too, which is tough to do, I have to tell you. It's really a grind when you travel that much, but she's committed to it, we're committed to it, and we're excited about both of our organizations and moving forward. So with that, if there's any questions, I'll be happy to answer them.
Raise your hand.
Yes, sir.
When you talk about the TV and the regional broadcast, what is specifically the regional broadcast for the New Orleans
Pretty much like I said, Louisiana, Mississippi, and the southern half of Alabama and the panhandle of Florida.
You guys get the panhandle of Florida?
Yeah, so look, if you happen to be in Destin, or if you happen to be in Panama City and you're not getting it, you know, call us, because we'll want to complain to somebody. So, yeah.
Dennis, I got a quick question. Something Kenny and Ed wrote about over the summer, especially when basketball question, when LeBron James went to Los Angeles. What can the NBA do? Because I think they're gonna kill the goose that laid the golden egg if they allow the superstars in those communities, and I'm thinking down the road Anthony Davis, they might go to a worse team, they might even take less money because it's Malibu, California. You can have a nice beach house home in Malibu, and that's the #1 place in the world anybody would want to live if you're 25 years old, 30 years old. And I'm just worried that flyover country like Oklahoma and what have you, they're never going to compete. New Orleans has its attraction, but we're not LA or New York. But what do you see? Will the players' union, in other words, like if LeBron leaves, then LA Lakers have to give up 4 first-round draft choices as a punishment for taking him. In other words, something the NFL has protection for. If you could just address that.
Yeah, man, I know we don't have a long time, but man, you opened Pandora's box, and I could tell you, you know, I go to owners meetings, and I'm the biggest advocate of small markets, and you're absolutely right. We cannot kill this league over just having certain markets being able to compete where other markets can't compete. Now, the interesting thing is that if you look at, again, I don't want to get too specific here or bore you, but if you look at the graph of how teams have spent their money over the last couple of years, there's about a third, right, that have been well below the salary cap, and you could almost throw them in the pot of rebuilding, reestablishing a footing, getting rid of some players, old players, about a third of those, so they're a little beyond the cap. Then you have another group who is basically spending right up to the cap, and it's almost all the playoff teams. I mean, we're over the cap as well, not in the luxury tax, but it's right up to the luxury tax. And then the last 4 or 5 are the people that are well over the luxury tax. And so this dilemma that we have gotten ourselves into is, it's so punitive to go into luxury tax. The only way you're ever going to go into luxury tax is going to be if you truly have a shot to make the championship. So, I mean, is that the most competitive way we want this league to be, where a third's rebuilding, a third makes a decision before the season begins whether or not they're going to go over to luxury tax and have a shot, and only 4 really have a shot to win the championship? And what I can tell you there is that the overwhelming sense in the room is no, that's not where we want to be. And I think the good news is, and I'll tell you, Adam Silver is all over it. The owners are over it. The finance committee's over it. There's been a lot of ideas knocked around how we can improve it. But you're absolutely right, because again, just for time, I won't go on, but there's about 50 other factors that kind of fall in out of bounds, if you will, if you continue this model. I mean, do we want players deciding where they're going to go, or do we want teams deciding where players are going to go? And do we want, those different types of things all come into play here. From New Orleans' standpoint, our goal is to be here forever. It's a lot harder for us, obviously, to decide to go over to the salary cap than it is LA. To put things in perspective, and I'm going to give you very round numbers, our local television deal is less than 20 million. Their deal is closer to 100 million. So how do you compete with that for free cash flow? So we never use that as an excuse. We never complain about it. And the best is our ownership has historically been, if we think we have to go into the luxury tax, we'll go into the luxury tax. If we could have got LeBron James, we'd have been in the luxury tax. I can promise you that. So.
You also had the very unique of being involved with the NFL and the NBA. So what you just described, the things that the NFL does to keep their teams, such as franchise tag and having a hard cap, does the NBA not look at how successful the NFL is and try to incorporate at least a franchise tag? Yeah,
they absolutely do. And the way they've historically done to try to do it is through revenue sharing. Unlike the football side, we split all the national revenue evenly across all 32 teams, so everyone has the same amount of cash. And so, the funny thing is, it really is funny that you would assume that you keep on hearing the cap in the NFL is hard. It's not as hard as you think it is. And in some respects, I know it sounds crazy, the NBA cap is harder because of the punitive effects of the luxury tax. But you have just brought up one of the best questions in the world, and that is what the union comes back to both leagues and says, hey, this isn't a player cost or player expense issue. This is the way you cut up your pie. Just because you carve up your pie like however you cut up your pie, then you can't ask us to take a pay cut or not have the same benefits of X, Y, Z. And their answer is, you go home, you fix your pie, you figure out how to split it up more equally, and then the smaller markets will have a greater chance to pay the players more money. The NFL, you're absolutely correct, has done a better job of that, of splitting up the pie. In fact, the last negotiation, you may remember with the players union, a big part of that was we had to get the revenue sharing piece done first before the union would sit down and talk about the lockout. I don't know if you remember that. That was kind of flew under the radar. But that was a big able. And eventually the NFL guys got it worked out, the owners got it worked out, and then the new CBA went into effect. And I think that same process has to happen with the NBA. And again, the good news is I think they're working in the right direction. I think they have a union boss who's open. I think they have a commissioner who has a good relationship with the union boss there, and we'll see where we go.